Alrighty guys, so I'm going to quickly put this at the beginning of the video because yeah, I'm ill and I've completely forgotten to do this. Drop your codes down below so that way I can enter it for you guys. But if you guys can also do the code thing for myself, there's 3 tickets. If you haven't done it, I know a lot of people have already done it, so there's that. There's also another event happening right now that you guys can also do where it does require code. So again, drop your code. Obviously put the code for Kingdom Squad, so obviously put Kingdom Squad and then ... and then your code, of course, that way we know which code to put in for which event. But yeah, there is a ton of free rewards. There's 5 tickets this time around, and there is a SR to SSR mage ticket too. So yeah, codes please, I need them codes, so put it in the comments below so that way I can start putting some of the codes in on my end, and then if you guys can do the same with my codes, that would be very much appreciated. Anyway, Vetto, oh god. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so it is about that time. Vetto. We've looked at Fauna, we've looked at Lich and Raya. Vetto is in the building. So, when it comes to Vetto and when it comes to the character himself, first of all, he's a tank. Now, I will say I do have his Greymore, which opens up a little bit more for him, right? With his Greymore, his second skill allows you to extend on the debuff. So for global, Charlotte is going to be a beautiful character to have beside him. You're going to have Lotus, right? Lotus is going to be a picture perfect character to have beside him due to the fact that you can extend debuffs, right? So characters that are like, well, predominantly characters that are applying debuffs onto enemies. If you have the Greymore for Vetto, then there's a lot more on the table to what Vetto can offer in those situations. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in that, but that requires the character and the Greymore, so it's like the full package needed to then go about the whole extension on the debuffs and support them, so that it's more in your favor, as you could say. So there's, again, it requires a lot. If we're just talking about Vetto himself, just the man himself, the man, the myth, the legend, you don't want to go too far into it, you don't even want to go too far into getting dupes either, then unfortunately, I think I've got to keep it real and say I hate saying this because I love Vetto. Vetto is one of my favourite characters within the show. This Vetto might be like one of the worst, like red tank that we have in the game. There is another red tank that we'll have later on, but I do see more value in that character over Vetto. It sucks to say, but yeah, this Vetto might be one of the worst, unfortunately. SSR tanks, that is. Now, like I said, obviously with my Vetto, he does have Greymore. I don't have the second dupe on my Vetto, so I'm not getting the boss advantage where, of course, he takes 7% reduced damage from bosses. Now, that's the key thing which I will say on what is actually puts Vetto on a much higher pedestal, due to the fact that on a single fight against a certain boss, so obviously when the boss raid comes out for global, there is value to be gained from Vetto in that particular moment. I will say that there is damage to be gained from this man too. This is the one thing which I've mentioned about Vetto. So I'll drop his ultimate right now, since I mean we'll just drop the ult right now. So we'll drop the ult. Again, if you have his Greymore, it does buff him up tremendously. But unfortunately, it's like 64k, and then because I did heal back, as you guys can see, my Greymore is allowing me to get barrier also. So like that ultimate is so clutch to keep Vetto alive, and again in boss situations he's extremely handy. And outside of that, that is the best value that Vetto actually applies as a character in boss situations, of course. Preferably green typing boss, of course, but even red typing boss he'll do just as fine. I mean, I did find him to be somewhat valuable within blue bosses because I do have that second skill, and again that second skill with the extension on the debuff works extremely well with Lotus because of course you can extend the speed reduction. Now in the case of Charlotte, because there are some debuffs you just can't touch, so in the case of Charlotte, if you've got hatred applied, that will not be buffed up. So right there, just a regular punch, disarming the enemy, giving them the attack reduction, again in a single target situation, that would have been pitch perfect because that's 23% reduction on their damage, which means you're absorbing a lot more for your whole team. The damage output is, again, very nice. I'll give Vetto that respect. As a tank, he does hit pretty nice. I will give him that. On his ultimate, you might be able to, depending on what your build is, because right now my Vetto's build and substats are doo-doo. I'm not going to build him. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do it. But if you do choose to invest, I will say you can probably quite easily hit 100k, because at best with my Vetto kit, when I actually cared about him, I managed to reach like 80-90k. So it's doable. Like, he can hit pretty hard on his ultimate, so there is that. And then of course that will then correlate into actually him getting all of his HP back to then a ton of barrier. So he's there for the longevity of things with single target bosses. I mean, in the case of AoE scenarios such as these where you've got multiple characters, yeah, Vetto, I don't think he's the tank that I would take. I will say that. So obviously, as you guys can see, we've got a ton of debuffs going on here. So if you have his Greymore, you can make good use of that second skill. There we go, and it extends it by 1 turn. Obviously, with his second skill, it is kind of useless because it really is only good when you have your HP 60% or lower to then get that life steal in. And then on top of that, if an ally of yours has fallen, then you'll get an increased damage. Outside of that, without having that Greymore, you're practically doing AoE 8k damage per enemy. It's kind of trash, I'm not gonna lie. There's not really much on offer outside of not having that Greymore. If you do have that Greymore, then of course you can. It's beneficial to have with the support of debuffers. So yeah, I think that's the unfortunate thing about Vetto, is that he's just not that much of a good character to say that you need to summon for him, that you need to spend for him, to then go the full mark to actually get his whole character and Greymore. It's just not worth it. Alright, so I'm going to do the Lich run just for the sake of, you know, doing a boss fight. So we'll see how this goes. Right, I need to nuke these guys out of the way because they will hit pretty hard. Oh, okay. I mean, in this case, it's pretty nice. If we get the debuff extension on this little fella right now, we completely missed. But that's fine, because here comes these grunts attack. Oh, look at that. See, this is something which I also want to show off. So with a healer, it's the Greymore in what makes this man beautiful. This is what I mean about Vetto. He just, as a tank, and then with the amount that you need to put into the banner and what you have to pull, you need his Greymore. So this is so beautiful. You guys see this? So obviously with a tank and a healer, with your team comps, especially with Vetto, it is kind of picture perfect, because with Mimosa, she's supporting him by giving him the heals that he needs, which is very nice, but that barrier play is there in a consistent manner, of course. Unfortunately, on his, obviously with his kit, the only taunt he has is from his combination skill. I was going to say, because this is one thing which I mentioned when he initially dropped on JP. I wished that on his second skill he had taunt. Over the whole ally's death, he gets a 20% increased damage. I would much rather have taunt. So right now, if I want to do the ultimate, I can do so, but if you're in the situation where you've got a healer, then what you can do is you can benefit from healing up the whole squad, and he can eat that, and obviously having that 28k barrier, that will obviously keep him alive if the enemy chose to keep on attacking. We'll do this, get that, and then we'll just throw in this, so get a little bit of heals back myself. We got, oh, there we go. So yeah, just a little bit, No, that's fine, that's fine. This mission is pretty tough, I will say that. There we go. See, so with Vetto, I will say having healers with him makes him that little bit more better with the consistency. Okay, so now we're gonna. Oh wait, there's grunts with this. See, when there's multiple enemies, okay, it's fine. We can still make it work. My team is strong enough to get the job done. So I'm just gonna move you out of the way since you've got less debuffs. So Vetto right now, I mean, technically speaking, I don't really need to apply the ultimate. If anything, I think what I will do is I'll weapon disarm him, right? There we go, reduce that damage output. Okay, yeah, see you later, Asta. I mean, you tried it, my guy. And then we will give that over to, okay, I thought Vetto was going to get healed there. That's absolutely fine. I think this is also pretty nice to have with, so I think a healer and then Lotus and Vetto is nice, because keep in mind, with the extension on Vetto's second skill with his Greymore, Lotus also does provide extension, so you can really pile on the debuffs and extend them to hell and back. So we did eat a pretty hefty amount, which is nice. So obviously going against a green boss is very, very beneficial in Vetto's case. And again, that weapon disarm really did help me out to absorb most of the damage. So we'll return the favor. We'll do the ultimate here. Obviously we'll heal up, we'll get our barrier back, and then of course we're back on stage 1 with just being an absolute nuisance right there, as you guys can see. That's kind of like the huge, and then of course I mean, if I want to, I could just keep stacking up with Vetto. So you guys are seeing where Vetto really does truly shine. So even though, yes, he's one of the worst SSRs, but depending on his setup and depending on what characters you have to offer, if you have his Grey Immortal, if you've got the character himself, and you've got healers as well as Lotus, of course, you know, there's a lot on play here with what you can stack up and with what, well, with the advantage play you can sit yourself in. So right now, as you guys can see, Lich is, yeah, I mean, I think this is, yeah. Wait, what's his, what is it, 1 turn, 2 turn, 2 turn, 3 turn? So yeah, that weapon disarm that I applied, it's on for 3 turns now. Incapacitate, it's on for 3 turns. Yeah, speed debuff for 3 turns. So you can really stack it up. So, and then we just go for that uppercut. Crit damage, beautiful. It is what it is. So yeah, don't get me wrong. There is on things that Vetto can offer, like, he's not completely useful. Like on global, I do think at the very beginning you will get your uses out of him, but it's just a longevity for this man where he just completely plummets to the bottom of just being one of the worst, unfortunately. Obviously, as aforementioned, saying that, oh, if you've got a healer, if you've got Lotus in that situation, then, you know, he can work pretty nicely. But that takes a lot to set up. That requires multiple characters. That requires the new character. That requires his Grey Immortal. There's a lot, you know, that comes together in order for you to get that perfect team, I guess you could say. So, it's just a lot, and obviously if you don't have it all, it really isn't worth your premium currency. Plus there's other better characters coming along that are just going to completely dog him. And when it comes to, again, as a tank role, he's just unfortunately one of the worst tanks that we have. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt with the healing and well, and the life stealing and the barrier play, all that good stuff. You know, it's picture perfect, don't get me wrong, love it. Again, in boss situations there's value to be gained, but outside of that, there's really nothing more.